we know this from like all the rats in the cage psychology studies of we're not that much different, especially when we're feeling stressed or down than the mice in the hit the lever for drugs versus food kind of studies. And it's a quick fix. It's a big reaction, and it's something that our body wants. And it's also, if we're saying, hey, every time I'm feeling low or feeling stressed and I want that dopamine, I'm binge eating because I'm not really getting at what's going on underneath.
It becomes a coping mechanism of some sort.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing. I mean, I hear so often from clients of like, I don't know why I do this. Everyone around me saying like, why can't you just follow a meal plan? If people are really heavily restricted and underweight, why can't you just eat? Like, you know how to do this. I've seen you do this. Yeah. And it is really complicated. And I think to get away from the idea of understanding eating disorders as just about body and food, they are way, way, way more complex. And that's why it's, I think, so easy for people themselves to judge themselves harshly and, loved ones and support systems to really not get what's going on and feel a sense of kind of helplessness and frustration.
So how do you help those individuals navigate their relationship with food?
I think starting in looking at like really what is their relationship with food specifically? Okay. Because even if we said, we took 100 people from each diagnostic category and said, what is your relationship with food? They may have really, really different answers. We know that underlying, there are, genetic, neurobiological pieces that set the stage for eating disorders. People have their own personal history, background factors, sometimes like trauma, sometimes for people who have had periods of food insecurity, whether that's where they lived, poverty, access to food.
Their environment,
Yeah, those environmental factors. So we're saying there are a lot of things that come together to really have these things come to life. So my first step is always explain it to me. Like, in your words, how do you understand what's going on? What has your relationship with food been like lifelong? Growing up, what kind of messages were you given? What kind of rules do you hold now? I also always want to know, how is this working? And not in the Dr. Phil, sarcastic, has that going for you kind of way. Legitimately, right? We don't do things on repeat that aren't giving us something. And you mentioned, right, that dopamine hit. So when it comes from binge eating, there is that dopamine hit. If we think of someone else who may have kind of compensation or purging symptoms after a binge, there is that tension release. Now, what the eating disorder won't tell people is, that's followed by pretty harsh consequences, psychologically, physiologically, perhaps. Even if we think, when people are really restricting, how is that working in terms of getting you through the day? That may be saying, actually, I am having pretty crushing depression, anxiety. I have stuff from PTSD coming up. Well, when we are in more of a starvation mode, that represses a lot of our intense emotions. And so part of knowing, hey, why is this working, is really important for treatment planning, not only so we as professionals can know what in kind of order of operations do we want to do, but also so we can give our clients the, I think, best info about here's what to expect. Psychologists tend to be really big informed consent nerds. And I think this is part of it, to say, hey, we're going to regulate your eating, or we're going to support you in getting kind of your weight back to kind of that healthy sort of set point range for you. All good, right?
Yeah.
And someone in their family might be saying like, yes, awesome. And we get there and they go, wow, I'm starting to have flashbacks. Or my emotions are feeling now really out of control and I don't know what to do with that. That's not somewhere that I want my client to be landing and thinking like, well, am I doing it wrong, right? We're saying that very well could happen, but let's have that conversation up front.
Do you recommend diets, or you just try to find the best relationship for food that you can find with the client?